So I am streaming, but okay.
Yeah. Good sound?
Well, they can hear me, but I'm not really. Good control.
Is it a PG stream?
No, it's not for children. That's what I put down before. So not made for children. It's not meant for children.
And the algorithm.
Yeah. Mix this stuff. But he's already. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but we just got some noises going on. Jeff is working on some airbrushing, and so the air compressor's going. So if the noise is bothering you, turn it off, and
Almost done.
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Part of what I'm doing.
All right. Wow.
That's really loud.
Yeah. It is. And you can get ones that have a tank on them,
Yeah,
and they have adjustable PSI as well.
yeah.
You know, pressure.
I think
So
with
nobody
that, that's my old compressor, isn't it?
Yeah.
What I did was I used to have it like on a blanket or something underneath it.
Yeah.
It stopped a lot of the vibration and noise.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Watch.
or even putting it up on like a something like a crate or something that's got airflow through it. The thing is, as long as our marriage, as old as our marriage is.
And even older, I think it was before we were married. Yeah, we bought a shirt.
We were married in shirt.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Open this first. Things to get it out. These are Pearl-X powder pigments. And, they're all metallics. They're very nice. Well, I think Pearl-X is supposed to be all metallics. I don't know. Decide what colors I want. Some blue. And these two blues. On each other. Hey Jeff, can you turn the light on over there, please? Thanks. For some reason, the shade. Let's see what I'm doing. Oh, I like that. It's nice copper. Nice copper. Gosh, I wish my eyes was just a bigger bronze. Just bronze. Yes. Antique bronze. I think I like that. I'm not sure which blue I kind of like it with. Maybe the darker blue. I want the blue, the dark one, but the light one I think is we'll probably maybe put a little bit of the other color in as well. Now I need a little bit of white. You don't want to go with the traditional white. This is it's called Naples yellow actually, but it's almost completely white. It's Amsterdam acrylic. You don't need that much, that's for sure. That's probably a little too much. Put that over there. I'll start mixing this in before it starts to make sure it's stirred up for 1 minute. I don't know about this stuff, but I'm going to try it one more time with this pour and see if maybe it's just meant for top coats on something. I don't know. I do have some crystal resin that I haven't opened yet. And I'll give that a go as well. I kind of like to use up the resin that I got open before I open another brand. You don't want to waste either, right? White.
How long do you think you'll stream for?
I don't know. I'm just gonna do this geode while I'm streaming. I didn't have any sort of time. I mean, nobody's watching. Only YouTube is watching. Why? What were you thinking?
Oh, well, just seeing what. Being careful what you're going.
Those two colors and white.
What's going on, everybody? It's Joe from the Acceptable Casualties. We're back to another video today. Today we're going to be doing a little comparison video between Flames of War and Battle Group. I know I have some people on the channel and some people over on Facebook where kind of asking questions between the two, like what the differences are. I know we've had some people jump from Flames of War over to Battle Group. I'm one of them. I've been playing a lot lately. So I just kind of wanted to throw a little information out there so some of you guys that aren't in the know can get in the know, and you can really kind of see how both of these gaming systems, they're actually really compatible with all the models that you guys have. So I'm going to run it down a list. It's like, like roughly 15 points that I'll be covering. It's not going to be a comparison as far as like which one I think is better than the other, because that doesn't really matter, because my experience, what's going to be more is based on like information I'm going to be giving you guys, based on like I think it's probably 15 bullet points that I'm going to try to hit, so you guys can kind of get a feel for what each game has to offer, what the feel of the game is on the tabletop, and you guys can take that information, you guys can put it to use yourselves. So to dive right into it right now, and we're gonna get right into it. So first thing up, if you guys are wondering, I'm gonna be looking at my notes I have down here in front of me, so you guys can be looking down this window. The first thing up is going to be the scale. So for Flames of War, for you guys who played, 15 millimeter for your vehicles, for your infantry, for your buildings, everything is based around 15 mil. Same thing with Battle Group. You can play it in 15 mil, or you can play it in 20 mil. It works in either one. So the rule sets for both, they're really compatible as far as like measuring distances and everything else that goes with it as far as scale. So if you have 15 millimeter models in one, you can play the other one, and vice versa. So another thing to talk about is going to be the basing for each of these. So for those who play Flames of War, you know that your basing is going to be on a squad level, so you're gonna get like 4 or 5 models per base, and then each base that you take a casualty for, you just pull the entire base off. That works like that pretty much game wide for Flames of War. Over for Battle Group, the basing is a little bit different. You can use your Flames of War bases over there, but at its core, Battle Group is set up to be individually based in 15 mil. And I'll be explaining Battle Group in 15 mil because that's where it is right now. You can play in 20 mil, but I'll be doing it in 15 mil. So Battle Group, it's set up at its core to be individually based. You pull individual models off when you take a casualty, and that's kind of just how you do it for the basing for that. You can use group basing for Battle Group, and it's not really an issue at all. I don't think that you do, instead of pulling bases off at that point, you're just using dice as wound counters built into when you move your bases. So when you hit a certain amount, you just pull the base off, and that's pretty much how it works for that. Now you could use your Battle Group models for Flames of War. You would just have to, honestly, you have to rebase them. There's a company out there called there's a couple other ones that do MDF basing. You just figure out what bases that you have your Battle Group models for. Say if you do it with 15 millimeter circle bases that you put your models on, you just buy other bases that are roughly the same parameters as the Flames of War bases, and just get them slotted, and you'd be able to put your battle group bases, the single bases, in those trays. We'll say you play for like other historical games, and build almost like a tray for it. And as long as they're the same size as the Flames of War bases, you can totally do it. And down the road, I think in the next couple of weeks, I have a couple projects that I have lined up, and one of the things I'm going to try to do is build a single base army for battle group, but also have larger bases that I'll be able to slot them into for Flames of War. So if I'm able to pull that off, you guys will see it. But in theory, you could go back and forth with both of them, no problem, just with some minor tweaks to how you would track casualties or have to rebase. Yeah, the basing, like I said, Flames of War is by squad. For battle group is going to be based off of individuals. Next up, the thing to talk about is going to be table size video games. Flames of War, for the most part, we play all of our games on 6x4. Sometimes you have some of the smaller stuff. You can play on 4x4 people, but at its core, it's like a 6x4 game. So all the terrain that you have, everything for that, move over to the battle group and vice versa. Because battle group is mostly played on a 6x4 or a 6x6 table. So yeah, like that's compatible. The size of your games as far as table space and the amount of terrain that you have in your collections or what you have down as well. It'll all still work and cross over while you need any more or any less. You can bigger tables or smaller tables. For the most part, 6x4 is going to work. Obviously, bigger games I have to scale to that. Because smaller games you scale to that as well. But at its core, 6x4 seems to be a standard for both of these games. So there's going to be no real deviation on that. Another thing I want to cover too was optimal game size. For us who play Flames of War, you guys know it seems like the game plays best at a company level. You get just a huge variety of model on the table. I mean, between your tanks, your infantry, all your support, at that point's value, you get a really nice size game that flows pretty well, and it looks great on the table too at that company level. You got a bunch of toys. I mean, it just looks really, really good. And Flames of War, I think, was an optimal game is going to be at company level. It still works for platoon. If you get more tables, it's still going to work at battalion level. And I think the game plays best at a company level, around 1,500 points. I think for Flames of War, 1,500 to 1,850, somewhere in that wheelhouse. For battle group, the games that I've played so far, I played 4 or 5 games. I think 3 are going to be posted. Well, 2 are only posted now, but I have a couple more coming up. But from what I played right now, yeah, I feel like the platoon level is going to be, for me at least, and from what I've noticed, platoon level seems like where it flows best. The squad level seems like a kind of small game you're able to punch out relatively quickly. Company level for battle group seems like you're going to need to really pull out a serious afternoon or possibly a full day to get a company level game in. There's a lot more that you do with battle group, and it seems like the game will stretch. So it seems like at platoon level, everything's really manageable. Still have a lot of action, a lot of maneuvering on the table. It still feels really, really good. The model count's not going to be as high visually as the company level for Flames of War, but as far as the pacing goes and how well the game feels on tabletop, I feel like battle group, from my experience so far, it might change more I play, but from what I've played so far and what I've noticed, it seems like platoon level is going to be where this really excels for how I play around here, which is, in an evening, try to get a game in 3 hours, maybe 4 hours tops, or just do a pickup game with some other people. It seems like battle group is going to excel. Platoon level, Flames of War really fits that well at a company level. As far as pacing of the game goes, with both of these, like I said, it's going to be based on company level and platoon level from here on out.
Can you turn the top microphone as well?
So if the basing
These are really dark in here.
you're going to go into that. Very slow. It's not so much of a grind in most cases. Like I said, I think it's about blowing stuff up, and it's about moving your stuff around. It's an action movie. I think it's awesome. I like it for that. Then you look over to battle group. What I've noticed with that, it's a little bit slower in its pacing because you're doing a lot more thinking as far as what you're going to be sitting there and what you're going to be doing for your tactics, how the orders system plays out. just how the game unravels as you play turn by turn. There's a lot more risk reward in Battle Group. Things can go wrong very quickly in that as well if you overextend. Like I said, you really have to think out your turns, and the pacing it slows because of that. But like I said, if you like that kind of thing, which really slow plotting, really planning out your turns in advance, putting a lot of thought into each unit's move. Battle Group might be right up your alley. Whereas if you're looking for, like I said, more of that action pack, every turn has stuff blowing up. There's a lot. There's a lot of fast pace to it. Flames of War might be more your thing. But I said, So yeah, they both have things to offer as far as the pacing of the game too. For model counts, this is where things I think start to get a little deceiving. So when you play a company level for Flames of War, obviously you're looking at your model count on the table, and you're just gonna have a lot more compared to that Battle Group team level. So you're looking at you think, wow, more models. It's gonna be a much bigger game. Maybe a little bit slower because you have so much more stuff to control on the table, but that's actually kind of deceiving because when you're playing Flames of War, you're working by platoons for the most part and not individual models or squads in that sense. You're moving an entire platoon of tanks or an entire platoon of infantry. Everything works in these giant blobs pretty much on the tabletop, so you're moving these giant entities. And usually in a 1,500 point game, you're looking at 6 to 10 platoons somewhere in there. So you're moving 6 to 10 units on the table at once. So it might look like a lot of models, but it might, like say, your model count might look like it's large, but the pacing of the game isn't really affected by it that much because you're moving in such large groups. It's an action-packed type of game. These large units, you're taking heavy amounts of casualties, but you're still in the fight because the units are so big. So you're looking at like 6 to 10 platoons to control. You go over to Battle Group, you're playing on a platoon size, which you're looking at your model count, which is much smaller. But the catch to that is you bring a platoon of infantry, it's not one entity on its own. It's going to be, you're going to have like your squad leader, your platoon leader is going to be his own entity. You're going to have each of the 3 rifle squads that make up the platoon. They're going to be their own entities. You're going to have, let's say for British, the Piat inside the unit is going to be his own entity. The 2-inch mortar is going to be his own entity. So inside that one platoon right there, you have, six different units that you use out of that just one platoon. So when you're playing a platoon size game, after you work in the rifle platoon, some of the supports that you have, and your forward HQ and some of the other things that you bring into your list, you're looking at roughly 12 to maybe 20 units when you start hovering around that 500 point game to 750 point game, depending on when you load out. So the model count is going to be substantially lower when you compare the two, but the amount of units that you have active on the table is much higher for Battle Group, and that tends to slow the game down because you have so many more options on the table to move and use each turn. And I'll get into that later too. We're going over some mechanics of the games as well. But it's very deceiving when you first look at it just from a company comparison. It doesn't really sink in as far as how games work for model counts until you really see how they unfold on how they use play and move on the table. I said more models definitely for Flames of War.
15, you remember? I think I made
Gosh, yeah.
I think I may try them on and they
on
didn't fit
platoon
me.
level
Well,
compared to
maybe.
Flames of War for Battle Group. So
I got
that's
them
where
from
keeping
Mark's
people
before.
on the table, you'll be
There was a
managing
great
lot
big
more
gumboots with the liners in them.
opposed to
They're down at the back door. Eric puts them on all the time.
Yeah, those
list
are-
building
Well, those are, I bought those.
for each one. So
my
for
last
Flames
one.
of War, the one thing I love about Flames of War is the amount of lists that you
Huh?
have. I mean,
Those
you
are
go
Those boots that Eric puts on,
Yeah.
I bought for my Alaska trip, and
Huge
they're leaking.
selection of lists.
And they're
All
leaking.
different types of
Oh, I didn't know
armies,
that.
infantry,
12 years
tanks,
ago.
recce, well, first before, not so much recce anymore. I mean,
Okay.
still
They
never
were
done,
good.
but
I thought that they were the
You
ones I
have
got, but
just tons of lists.
because I know I
tons of
got a
options
pair for
you can
Eric and I got a pair for
What I like
Jeffrey.
about the Flick to War of this building is that you have it all on one page in front of
He's
you.
like, they're great because they got the heavy
Visually, you
liners
can
on, right?
see how it all flows together and puts
Is that
together,
what
and
you
it's-
want?
it's
Something
great.
like that?
You
Or do you
know
want
what? It's
hiking
like,
boots?
I think I need
just
hiking boots
research
that would work in that way too, right?
You need waterproof hiking boots.
For a certain part of the whole
Or
works
circle
area.
boots.
Flames of
think
War
it's
has
place
these
to
lists set up for you. Now, are they all completely historical? No, they're not. They have options in there, might not fit in certain areas. But at its core, these lists, they're very robust. They have almost all the options that you
The
can
trick
think of,
is,
plus maybe even a little bit more in some cases for
Finding
every theater
who's
that
got
you want.
the,
And I really like that about them. As far as this building goes,
which makes me
tactically,
think
Flames
we
of War,
probably have to
you can
order
play
them.
infantry. Infantry still works, but Flames of War at its core seems like it has been and it is going to continue to be a tank heavy game. Tanks are going to be king from here on out. So if you're a tank player and that's what you're looking for, Flames of War will be right up your alley. Like it is a tank heavy. It's a tank heavy game if you're list building, especially playing competitively or doing pickup games. Most people like to bring up armor. That's just how the game goes. It is what it is. So as a tank is king for Flames of War, and you do have a ton of variety in your list building. When you go over to Battle Group, the list building seems like it's not a complete 180, but it's very different than that.
Got a really itchy
Battle Group at its
nose.
core, it seems like it is built around infantry.
So we're still gonna
Take
have
your
to stop this.
whatever your escape side play for this whole dual platoon level, you have to take at least one platoon of infantry in your list, possibly up to two. I think Russians can go up to three, I think platoon level. But it's centered around your infantry platoon,
We're
and then off of that, you're building support. So your list building is really about supporting your infantry. You get your infantry platoon, and then your
So interesting.
tank assets, machine gun assets, mortar assets. And it's all built around the platoon that you're building for this list. It's not like a set list of Flames of War. You have like all these boxes you need to fill. It's pretty wide open. You just have to fill your prerequisite for your infantry
toilet
platoon
paper.
and your forward HQ. And then outside of that, you're really kind of building around that. You can still build tank lists. You can do that, but you have to have at least one unit of infantry in there. And then after you have that, it's pretty much wide open. They leave the list building really up to the player. So if you have a buddy that you play with all the time, sure, you can build any wacky list they want to put together. That's based off of that book that you're playing out of. So you'll be able to, if you're doing like Fall and Reich, you'll have like all the German equipment just sitting there, and you literally can just pull out a la carte on the table based off of that. Unless as long as you see your prerequisite, which is one infantry platoon. And they leave up to you to research one of those historical lists or anything like that. They have a lot of the information in the Battle Group books that you kind of start to pull out of, or let's say you do a quick internet search, you want to play like this. But the thing is, also it's a little bit more on year end if you want to put together a historical list or anything along those lines. Whereas Flames of War has you more on the rails, but it has a very large variety of lists for you to choose from. So that's kind of how the list building would work. Once you start getting into the game, you're looking at turn mechanics and kind of how things work with this. So for Flames of War, for turn mechanics, you're going to be looking at your turn is going to be broken down into multiple phases, and the game is really built in an I-Go system. So for Flames of War, you're going to have your movement phase, you're going to have your shooting phase, you're going to have your assaulting phase. And when you play Flames of War, every unit that's available to do anything is able to do it. So, if you're pinned, don't shoot in most cases, but there's penalty. Like, there's things that you can do, and do it. So like I said, nobody's pinned. There's no issue with that board. Every unit moves. Every unit can shoot, and then every unit is able to can assault throughout these 3 phases. So you know, you get everybody in a position. You shoot the targets that you want to shoot, and then based on those outcomes, you might put yourself in positions to do assaults or everything. But you plan everything as an army, as a company, as each phase unfolds. Certain things open up, certain things may close off. It just depends on what your results are for your turn as it flows. And that's how that goes. And then obviously at the end of your turn, your opponent goes. So it's, I do everything I got to do. Your opponent watches, waits, and then wait for his turn to react to what happens. You get in a battle group, things change a little bit differently. There's no phases per se. So how it works is instead of you getting to move your whole force, you have to roll order dice. It's a 2d6 per platoon. So you might have like 10 units on the table, and then say you roll a 5 with your 2 dice, and then you have 5 orders. And then if you have a certain amount of officers on the table, they can add to your, so say you get 7 orders. So with those 7 orders that you would have for your 10 units that are on the table for the battle group, you can only hand them out to certain units, and then each one of those units acts individually. So instead of just moving everybody in phases, you almost have to chain together your orders and really put some thought into how you're going to be using them, because they play off of each other, and you can really string together some really strategic moves. But you have to take a little bit of time to really think out your moves ahead of time. It's not just about like these tanks blast away and do what we're going to do. There's a little more thought that goes to battle, and your turns can be a little bit longer because of it. But I think when you pull off certain maneuvers and tactics on the table, it's a little more rewarding with battle group, because your thought processes are really they pay off more. So how the turn mechanic works, like I said, it's based off of orders. You'll give one unit an order, they'll be able to move and shoot twice, move twice. You can set them in ambush, so you can wait until your opponent goes, and then wait until he moves across the ground, and your unit can kind of see. You can pop your ambush right there, so you can shoot them when they're vulnerable, or you can set your guys to have a reserve on your opponent's turn. If they move a unit maybe out of a hotly contested area and they have nobody else to activate over there, you can be like, hey, I want to use my reserve move order, and you can start
Thank you.
aggressively in the open area.
Hi, Tracy.
Pushes up certain parts of the table that are left
What do you think?
or maybe there's units that aren't going to be used.
They get
roll very well for his orders. So there's a lot of give and take, a
or
lot of thought process as far as the term mechanics go.
But
it's a lot more engaging. It's
I
not
think
sitting and waiting to, for your turn.
combination.
You really have to kind of pay attention to what your opponent is doing on his turn, so you can kind of react if you have reserve orders set up. And also for your turn, it's not just like just push everybody ahead. You really have to put some thought into what units you're going to activate and how you're going to activate them to chain together your battle plans. So they're much different beasts as far as the turn mechanics go, and it does affect the pacing of the game, because the way that Flame War is set up, it's going to be like every turn is very bang, bang, bang to the phases. It keeps the pacing of the game going. It really feeds into that fast-paced action pack. Like I said, everybody's moving at once. You get that visual look of like the entire company pushing up the table. Everybody's shooting at once, and then you get these massive assaults that go off, and all this happens in stages. So visually, it has a very different feel to it, and it really plays to the strength of the game, which is a very fast-paced, action-packed game. And the mechanics, the turn mechanics, really play well to that. Whereas battle group setup is much more methodical, much slower in the thought process and how it goes. When I say much slower, it's not like the game's going to drag on when you compare these company level to team level. Like it's still kind of roughly the same. You don't have to take like an hour longer you would take for our experience, but listen, but the turn mechanics definitely lend themselves to the style of each of the games. Also going into the combat mechanics, so Flames of War. The way it's with combat mechanics and stat lines built into the game, it's really built for fairly simple stat line. You have simple armor, simple guns, simple modification, modifiers to dice rolls, and saves. It's really simple, bang, bang, lends itself to the speed of the rule set. Once you play a couple games, it's really just about you roll a d6, you see what happens, and then like you roll another d6 for a save, whatever happens. It gets really, really simple. You add one, subtract one. There's not a lot to it. It's really simple stat lines, simple mechanics for combat, and it keeps the game flowing. And that's what it's about. It's about keeping the game flowing, keeping the action packed. You go over to the battle group, and battle group still slows down. I assume it's going to speed up for us a little bit more, but even at its core, it's not as fast as Flames of War goes in that sense of combat mechanics, because there's a little bit more you have to do. You have the option to either shoot the unit, you have the option to suppress the unit. If you're going to shoot the unit to try to do damage, you have to observe them in combat. And the kind of thought process is one that's like, you have gunfire, smoke, you have like all this mayhem going on in the battlefield. Just because you see like a helmet popping up somewhere doesn't mean that you're just going to open up on them. You have to kind of observe with your unit and wait for a good time to fire. And if the opportunity doesn't present itself, or you don't pick it up at the best time, you're not going to be able to shoot. So there's that mechanic to it where you have to observe unit before you shoot. There's modifiers for that, so you have that in play. Then you also have for your shooting, you have other modifiers based on if you're shooting AP, HE, if it's going to be rifle fire, auto cannon, what the distance modifiers are. It's not just outside of 16, it's broken down like 10-inch increments. So there's all these other modifiers that you take into account when you're going to be shooting, you're going to be suppressing, or you're going to be firing your mortars. There's a little bit more rivet counting and a little bit more reference as far as going charts. But if you like that kind of depth in your combat rule system, you'll absolutely love it. Like I said, if that's what you're looking for, is like a little bit more, factual line as far as firefights and things like that go. There's a ton to offer in battle group, and it does still flow. It still flows really well. Like once you start picking up on some of it, like how the observation works and the firing ranges and some of that kind of stuff, you get a little more familiar with how your units work on the battlefield with their loadouts. It is going to be a different feel than Flames of War is, and vice versa if you're coming from battle group trying to Flames of War out. They do play much different in the combat mechanics, but they both, like I said, they both do what they do extremely well. And that's like the kind of game experience you're looking for. They do provide very different game experiences. Nothing to say for battle group for referring to the charts and like I said, the rivet counting of it for your units and your guns and stuff like that. When you're out there and I said you're going over your AP and stuff like that, so you shoot a tank in Flames of War, you're just gonna see if you hit it. And if you hit it, you have
Tracy, if you're still there, you should put your Arbonne link on there.
At its core, that's kind of how it works.
For people who might be interested in
it kind of works the same way. But
your
also,
Arbonne.
there's a chart.
My sister, she sells beautiful makeup, skincare products.
For battle group, it's broken down into numbers for your strength of your gun and then letters for your armor. So it kind of makes like a square graph, and you kind of find in the middle where they match up. And that's the dice roll that you need. So that's kind of how you figure out how you're going to pop vehicles. And the cool thing is about it is they do have that. When you look at it, they have the for your tanks and stuff. There's a basic armor stat line. This is going to be more like a maritime. And then you're going to have your gun, and it's going to have
seashell geode.
For your gun, you're going to have what kind of cannon you have, what the strength is, but also when you play the game, you have a certain amount of ammunition for your tanks. So you might have like 6 rounds to carry for your T-34 or 85. And then with those 6 rounds before the game starts, you have to pick, are you going to take 4 AP and 2 HE, or maybe just go all AP. So you have to kind of manage your ammunition as well as you play. So for Flames of War, you just plug and play. Like there's no such thing as depleting ammunition. Like you can fire like 1,000 shots with your Tiger tank, and it doesn't matter. Whereas in battle group, you have to really manage how you're going to shoot. If you're playing the long distance shootout game, you're going to burn through your ammunition with a very small percentage of damaging the enemy or even hitting the enemy. That's in that case. So you have that to worry about as well. Like it's a lot of thought in a position. Do I get closer to get better shots and conserve my ammunition, or do do I plug away from distance and just hope to get that lucky hit and take that tank out and do that? And like, you can play that game. And there's also units in there that that can replenish your tanks with ammunition and things like that. So like I said, the combat mechanics, there's a lot more depth to what happens in Battle Group with and I feel like that's the kind of play style that you're looking for, that you're into. It is very rewarding what it is. If you're just looking for, for that action, fast paced, we'll get maybe a game or two in a night. The combat mechanics will lend itself to that because like I said, it's really simple. Just a couple of dice rolls and you see if something blows up. If it does, just keep on rolling to the next thing.
Right.
So that's how the combat is like at its core how it will work. For depth of rules. Between the two systems, both of them. I mean, they both have a lot of rules, but they look a little bit different. So for Flames of War, there's the whole V3, V4 thing. But we're just going to talk about V4 because it's the new one right now. Version 3, I prefer version 3 to version 4. Just because I just the way it feels on the tabletop better. But version 4 is how we'll compare right now because that's what's new and that's what people seem to be playing right now. So for depth of rules for version 4, there's still a lot of options that you have for it. It's some stuff that's been streamlined for Flames of War, but that was I think at its core they just wanted to kind of streamline the game a little bit more, make it a little more accessible to players. There's still depth to it, but it's not. I don't think it's as deep as it was in some areas. And like I said, it's maybe more accessible right now. It's definitely the depth of the rules and the way the rules are set up. It's more toward a very balanced and competitive style of play. And the rules lend themselves to that. Like so, just like I talked about the combat and turn mechanics, the way the rules are set up is to keep the game flowing at that fast pace, not really bogged down with a lot of things, and just try to get you out of the game in under 2 hours at the company level, like 2.5 hours, like in some cases. But if you know what you're doing, you can punch a game out in 2 hours or 1,500 points. So if you do that, that's kind of the way the rules are set up. Like there's some depth to it in some areas, but for the most part, the way the rules are set up now, there's some streamlining there to kind of just keep the ball rolling and flowing. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's if that's what you're looking for in the game, it does it really, really well. If you're looking more for a little more depth in your rules, like I said, a little more fat to chew on. Some more options that you can really dig into in all phases of the game, as far as like what specific units can do, like what pioneers can do, medics, all the things that you want a little bit more out of, like with as far as depth of gameplay goes, and like I said, for like the shooting and the moving and just the mechanics for Battle Group, there's a lot more fat to chew on there, and there's I don't want to say it's like comparing chess and checkers, so I don't think that's fair, but I think for Battle Group, when you look at its depth of rules, there's a lot more options built into the rules of the game. Each unit really does feel like it does what it's supposed to do, or mimic what it's supposed to do from reality to gameplay.
It's really pretty.
It does all those things really well, and the rules are there for you to take it as far as you want to go. Without housing the games as they are, just kind of how they're set up. Whereas the Flip the War rules set, they do have those units there that do specific things, but some options are not very deep at all, or they're very limited, like Recce, what they're able to do, or Pioneers, what they're able to do. Like, the options aren't very deep in some of those areas. And that's for the case of keeping the game fast paced and just streamlining the game and making it more accessible. Whereas Battle Group, there's a lot more options there. So if you're looking for more depth in your game, more depth out of your units, that might be the way to go. But also, I can see both of these. It's kind of hard to mix both players. And like so, we're going to that in the Flames of War community right now, where you're comparing version 3 players and version 4 players. Some people want a little more depth, and other people prefer that like streamline, and it doesn't really mix very well. So as far as the depths of rules go, you have to go into it whether you're playing Flames of War and Battle Group, depending on what mentality you are to play. You have to kind of go in it either being open-minded if you're not used to that certain depth or lack of depth inside the rules, and here we go when
These are all
you know, they want to see how it
abalone
plays,
shells
because
in different
if you have
shapes.
somebody who's like a rivet counter, really likes the deep rules, somebody kind of wants a streamlined fast game, you get different experiences. If they're playing together, you're going to get very different experiences on the tabletop for each one of those. So it's something to keep in mind when you go and play. If you're going to, you know, if from Battle Group Camp, jump into Flames of War, from Flames of War, jump into Battle Group, try to go into it with an open mind as far as what the game has to offer. Give it a couple games to see how it plays out. You might surprise yourself, and you might actually, like it, not thinking that you would go into it, and vice versa. So
This is cool.
just something to be aware of when you get into the game as far as the depth of the rules go. As far as the balance of the rules, so right now for Flames of War, after the streamlining and the way everything works out between the lists, the game mechanics, just the rule set in general for Flames of War, it's very balanced. It's very geared toward tournament play, pickup game play, where you put your stuff down on the table and it's a very even playing field. I know there's going to be shenanigans if somebody wants to dig through the rule book and dig through lists. People are going to be able to put some stuff together. There's a ton of rules like that in games. But at its core, it's built for balance. From, like I said, from pickup games up to just the tournament level. It's built so I can show up, you can show up. We don't even know each other, but we can put our stuff on the table, and there's kind of like a common ground there. Where we both have a 50-50 chance to kind of win the game for the most part,
as time goes on.
once the dice start to fly. And that's Flames of War, I think. It's a really good thing for Flames of War. Like I said, if you're a competitive player, or if you don't have like a tight knit group, you just kind of show up at the game.
Three forms of geodes that I
Flames of War really
did
works
with
well, I think, for that. It's
silicone.
just the way that the game is built, it
See-through
works well for that.
silicone, which I
When you get over to Battle Group, I think Battle Group really shines.
I
based
lined
off
the
street
outside
rules,
and
playing
the
a couple
inside of it
games.
with
If you have a tight knit group,
Vaseline.
it's not
And
really. It's
what
not
I
really
did,
built for
but it's not,
tournament.
it's only leaking through in one spot.
They talk about that. Like, they talk about that.
So
Like,
I'm
when they
good
talk
with
about the
that.
game, you go to their
Plugging
forums.
up the
That
snow
it's not about
Vaseline.
tournament
Let's
play.
see
It's
when
really
it's
about narrative games and creating historical scenarios. That's what the game is about. So if you look at a really tight knit wargaming group, or if you just play, like I play against it a lot. So
So
if you have somebody that you play against a lot, I think Battle Group does really well because it lends itself to a really narrative kind of feel to it. The game itself, as far as the balance goes, like there's balance in the game.
Maritime.
The way the missions are set up, the way the theater books are set up, there's like a historical imbalance to it, and I don't know if that makes sense, but like every battle wasn't fought on even ground. Every battle wasn't fought between even armies. The scenarios in the game, the way the lists are set up for Battle Group, it all reflects that, and also the way the mechanics work as far as the way the orders fall, and the way the morale goes, and I'll get into the morale in a second as well. That all plays to I want to say not balance because that's not the word that I'm looking for, but it's a little more chaotic as far as the balance goes. There's a lot more ebb and flow that go to the game. It's not just really based off of me doing damage to you doing damage to me. It's really built into the mechanics of the game. So I think, like I said, it lends itself to if you're trying to play those games where you want to get like a story of something happening on the tabletop, or you're trying to recreate like a historical battle on the table. I think that really works very well for that. And the more I play it, I think that's really starting to sink in more. Like you play Battle Group not because you want this even style battle, it's competitive play. Like you play competitively, but it's not the same kind of feel. You're going in there and you're playing for the story. You play Battle Group. You're playing Flames of War. You're playing for more of a competitive game that's balanced, where we both come out and we have a 50-50 chance to play. So on the balance level, that's kind of how both we play. One thing I skipped over to is going to be, and it's still so fun in the conversation, is the end game. How you achieve victory for Flames of War and Battle Group. So for Flames of War, you roll a commission, whatever it's going to be, and you either try to roll in and take an objective, or for version 4, you try to like just decimate a company and get them to break.
Trying to get rid of all this crap that's built up on my
very hard to break a
screen.
company in version 4. I'm not a big fan of how morale works, but that's a totally different case for that. But that is core what it is. It's you're trying to
There
push
you go.
somebody off an objective, take an objective, and hold it without them coming back and contesting.
Because I've got notifications turned on to everybody that I subscribe to. And so I look at my YouTube channel, my subscription line.
As far as morale for your own,
They add up very quickly.
When you end up taking casualties,
But I watch them
you have
all.
to be below 2
Ask
tanks, to see if that even breaks
Full-time
your
job.
infantry. If you let
A full-time job, that's right.
to break your platoon is extremely
Not
difficult.
really,
As well as breaking your
I have a
company. So you're
method.
taking, 60, 70%
I have a
casualties
method.
before you even think about even breaking off the table. So if you're looking for, that Rambo-esque fighting to the last
But I
man,
went to pull up one of
models on the table,
the
blowing each
people
other
that I
up,
subscribe to,
that's how the morale system plays in the flame.
Molly's
Like I said,
Artistry,
it fits
and
the system,
her
and it
subscription
fits
was gone from
what
my
they want
list.
to do. And
I
if you're
had
looking
to
for that kind of
resubscribe to her.
experience, where you're not just peeling models off for taking
So I
one or
don't
another
understand how that would happen, because I didn't even answer.
action-based system compared to a
But,
realism-based, and
apparently,
realism feel to it. Like the flames
what's
of war,
happening
works
is
for that morale.
from
You're
what I
keeping
understand,
models on the
they're
table longer. It's gonna be
sort
much
of
higher casualty rate.
the people who are looking
it's just a
to
very different
monitor
feel.
YouTube usage,
The
they
morale works over there
they
is
will delete
if you take an
subscriptions and stuff like
objective,
that
you
if
might
you're
not
not
be able to take
following
an
them
objective,
enough
it's
or
just a morale
something
hit
like
to your
that.
opponent. If you lose a unit, it's a
So,
morale hit to your
or if you
opponent.
just
You're
click
not
like
looking
and
for,
carry
battle
on.
group.
So people are asking now that,
The main way to lose battle groups, you
just
have
take
morale.
take
So based
a
on
minute or
saying
two
battle
into
groups,
the
you get a battle rating,
into the
obviously,
video
infantry, tanks,
just
whatever you
say
end up putting
just
in
say
those
yeah,
different
you
battle
liked
ratings,
it,
where that number tallies up,
and then
there's
fast forward to the end. I don't care.
For every unit that you lose,
Anyway.
you pull a token out of the bag and it'll have a number on it. And if you pull like a 3 out, your battle rating
This is
will drop
really
down
gonna look
to 2.
sweet when
And
it's
that
done.
continues to drop based on the
Now
units
I'm
that you
torn
lose.
over
If you
what to
lose
do
an
with it,
objective, you
because
have
I've
to take a pull. There's other ways
two
to take pulls,
ideas.
but ultimately,
And
you're
one
playing
is
against your
not
opponent
give it to
whoever
my
gets
sister.
down a battle rating of 0.
It's not one of these
First, in most
ideas,
cases,
in case you're still
is how you
listening.
break your opponent. You don't know. You keep it secret, so you don't know what your opponent's
I
morale
love
is
you,
at
but
that
you can't
point.
have
So
it.
there's a lot
I
of
know
thought
that
as far as is now the time to push? Are they close to breaking? Is now the
Rowan's
time for me
room
to be aggressive?
is
And if it pays off, you can
probably
break
going
the
to be
company.
doing
If
a
it doesn't pay
fundraiser
off, and they're in much
at
better
some
shape
point,
than you thought they
and
were. Now
I'm
you're
going
putting
to donate
yourself
another
in a
piece,
bad
and I think
position,
that
as
this
far as
might be the
taking
piece that
morale
I
hits.
donate for auction.
So there's that.
I don't know how Elizabeth is going to
Like I said, they both play
manage it this
a
year,
little bit
but
different. And I say it's also a
drop
balancing
her
act. It goes
line
back to
and
what I was
see
talking about before for Flames of War.
see
You
if she's
know what
come
it
up
takes
with
to beat your
anything.
opponent.
She asked me if I'd come up with anything. Geez, I wish I could. Online, I was thinking like an online auction
Very competitive play, the mechanics,
or
and morale plays
I don't know.
well to that kind of feel.
An online auction would be kind of cool. Like if you just had, if you could zoom into it.
Units are going to be losing off the table. Objectives are going to keep going back and forth in certain parts of the
Gosh.
battlefield. You want to take it, not take it back. It's going to have a morale effect.
Or you could like get one of the halls. I'm sure like the Lions Hall or something.
There's even situations where
You know, where you could set everything up and like have one of those auctions where you buy tickets for things.
And it might be something that
Another way to auction stuff is that, and remain a distance, because you could just go in one at a time. You know, and then
my command car might just throw over a
it's
minefield.
not a bad idea, hey Joe.
The morale tokens in the chip bag and how
COVID.
that works. It lends
I know,
itself
but
to,
you wouldn't go in. You wouldn't
to
have the stuff
balance
set
and
up
storytelling,
in
narrative
a
feel,
large
things
room
like the
where
way you break armies and how morale works
one or
on the table
could
without
one or
very
two
different
people
between
walk
the two, but
through
they also
at a
really
distance.
enforce the style
And
of game that they're both part of.
it'd be really difficult to do that with it.
Now let's start getting into something a little bit different now. So
The only thing I
theater
can think of
options
is
as far
online.
as what you have available to you army wise, lists, where rules are. And So for Flames of War, if you play Flames of War, there's like a library of books. I mean, going back from whatever version you played up until now, they have rules for everything from the Pacific, from early war to late war. I mean, you're fighting in Europe, North Africa, you're fighting, down Wake Island. I mean, they just have rules for everything. Russians against Japanese, they have lists. I mean, it's literally everything under the sun for Flames of War. They've really covered everything. In some cases, they covered it multiple times. Just updating posts and doing what else they're going to do with it. But yeah, like there are theater options and books. There's Flames of War has tons of stuff, and it's all. That's one of the things I do like about it is there's a theater that you want to play in a certain era in the war. There's a book for it. Flames of War has a book for it. How they get updated into V4, we'll have to see. But right now, if you're willing to play version 3, like there's you have everything under the sun. They have the conversion book for version 4 to play version 3 books, so you can still do all that right now as they gradually update.
The problem with working with resin is that you have to stop
Pretty much have everything you can think of.
and wait
There's
for it to
stuff that's
dry.
they haven't really touched on yet, but everything for Europe, North Africa, a lot of it's all there, and a little bit Pacific at this point. When you go over to Battle Group, since it's a little bit newer of a game, obviously it's not going to have the same depth there. But they do have some books. So you have Blitzkrieg, you do have Barbarossa, you have their book for North Africa. I think it goes into Greece as well. They have Overlord for like Normandy. They have Kursk for Mid-War Eastern Front. They released. They're saying they're putting out Market Garden in the fall. I have from a source that they have a lot of books lined up coming down the chute. It's just it's going to be over the next year or 2 years. Start seeing some more stuff come out for them. So it's a newer game. They're a little bit more limited on the theaters, but they still do have a pretty decent variety. Whether you want to play early war, mid-war, late war, and stuff is constantly coming out the chute. They have all the main stuff covered too. So it's like some of the smaller theaters that they're still working on putting out right now. But like I said, if you want to do Blitzkrieg early war, Barbarossa early war, it's there. If you want to do North Africa, it's there. If you want to do Northern Invasion, it's there. Fall of the Reich for the end of the war, it's there. Like there's stuff you can do. Battle of Kursk. I think we do a Stalingrad. I think it might be in there. I don't know if it is or isn't. But the book is there. They have Battle of Bulbs. Like the big stuff is there. It's just they're not slowly, but they're putting out stuff as in Market Gardens coming up. They're doing a more in-depth book for Overlord. It's going to be coming out, I think, next month or the month after. So there's stuff there and it's growing. So the models that you have for Flames of War, you're going to be able to use them most likely in books they have out for Battle Group. You might not have as many options at this point, but you do have options there. So I mean, you could play both systems, and it's not that big of a deal. Coming from Battle Group to Flames of War, like
And make a little picture video of it.
as far as theater options go.
Foreign giant.
Next up, the other thought was going to be your missions variety. So when you go and you play the game, half of the fun of it is the variety of missions. So Flames of War, out of the core rulebook,
Okay, that's it
you
for
have,
me.
there's
Thanks
for version
for,
4, there's not that. I think it's like 10 missions in there. I think they have like a PDF, or they might have added some other ones. But the missions in there, they're simple, they're very balanced. So no matter what mission you roll up, this goes back to the talking points earlier.
These are in really great
It's
books.
very
Where
50-50
did I find
as
these?
far as the balance.
Got these at the dollar store.
It's very streamlined.
Great big freaking bag of rubber gloves.
If you're just the core, that's what it is. Flames of War. If you want to go outside,
There, you wear those to the store and go shopping.
I need some more too. Throw out my old.
Well, these are reusable ones, eh?
Yeah, I had some more heavy duty reusable ones from my printer, but they got covered in hair.
Okay. Well, so yeah, these aren't the disposable, and these aren't going to fit your hands. But no, they're tight on my end, and I really like them. What?
I got them at the dollar store.
Yeah, I think that's where I got these too. Was at the dollar store now. I just gotta find
I've
them.
only gotten the core rule book and the
Right,
follow right now. I've got some pieces, some other stuff. I got Barbarossa
I'm
coming
going
in
to
right now.
end this.
But the one thing I do like about that is their core missions that you get in the core rule book. They're about the same amount as flames of war would, as far as you go core wood to core wood. You have both of those in there. The cool thing I do like about the battle group missions is there's a lot of random elements in it.